How are the markets going to react to Joe Biden dropping out and dropping his bid for re-election? He has endorsed Kamala Harris. Charlie Gasparino from the Fox Business Network is here on KCMO in Kansas City, and he wrote a great piece last night, how a Kamala Harris candidacy could wreak havoc on the stock market. Charlie, good morning. What's the biggest reason that a Kamala Harris White House bid is going to make the stock market potentially shaky?
Well, there is a Trump trade that's on right now. Certain sectors are up. I mean, last week it took a breather, and I think it was because of the realization that Trump would have a real challenger. You know, Joe Biden is not a real challenger. If he stayed in the race, Trump would win easily. Every poll showed it. The Republicans would take both houses of Congress. You would have a corporate tax cut. You would have maybe even individual tax cuts. You definitely have deregulation. No matter how many trade wars J.D. Vance wants to get into, Trump has basically governed, and his policies, if you listen to them, are largely mainstream Republican sort of tax cutting, deregulation policies. That's all good for stocks. Kamala Harris is a real challenger, and I think now the futures are up today. All the futures are up today, but I think you got to wait a little bit to see this. The polls go in this. If she looks competitive, and again, I don't know how much of the taint of Joe Biden is going to rub off on her. I mean, there is a scandal here. Excuse me. The scandal is that there was a cabal of people, including her, that covered up that he wasn't mentally fit and physically fit for office for 4 years. Mm-hmm. Particularly the last two. That's big. And they thought they were going to slide him into office. They would keep him under wraps, maybe like they did the last time. The American people wouldn't have a real choice, and he'd get elected, and the administrative state runs itself, even though he's barely cognizant. That's a scandal. That might go to her. Okay, we don't know. But if it doesn't, because Donald Trump is so polarizing, and he has such low negatives, such high negatives, you could see some stuff start turning in these markets. I mean, we are talking about a Dow that's at 40,000 right now. The Nasdaq's almost is at 5,500. I mean, the Nasdaq, S&P 5.5, Nasdaq almost at 20,000. These are big numbers. And by the way, they don't have much more to go. Anyway, you could see some. So this is kind of a black swanish sort of thing. At least that's what I'm hearing. And maybe I'm wrong, but if you look at her policies, they're not pro-growth. That's for sure. She's more progressive, maybe than Biden.
Well, why then, Charlie Gasparino? You wrote about this in your article. Your Wall Street Democratic sources say the big donors are ready to spend whatever it takes to get Kamala Harris elected, despite the fact that they know that she will be bad for growth, especially for a lot of these businesses and big-time corporations. How do we square that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's been the old, conundrum, right, and wrapped in a riddle. Why are there Wall Street Democrats? And there are a lot of them. And they would tell you there's other issues that they believe big business should pay their fair share. By the way, a lot of these guys are good, sort of finagling their way through gaming the administrative state. Don't let them fool you. I mean, crony capitalism is alive and well when government is big. So I mean, there's lots of reasons why people with money and give money to Democrats. But just so you know, a lot more are given to Republicans on Silicon Valley, particularly right now. Silicon Valley's always been a hotbed of liberalism, and I think she's going to be able to raise a ton of money. And I got that was a snapshot of last night. I just saw something recent. Some came across Twitter or X that she raised $60 million. The Dems raised $60 million, already. There's not going to be with them raising money now. I mean, and by the way, the money train stopped over the last week.
Yeah. Charlie Gasparino, Fox Business Network, is here on KCMO in Kansas City. So the Wall Street donors, they're re-engaged. They're excited about Kamala Harris. But what about now, Trump?
Not just Wall Street. It's everybody. I mean, it's Silicon Valley. It's with the Dems on Wall Street. Remember, their fundraising is vast. They have lots of.
Mm-hmm.
You there?
Yeah. So what does that mean? I think it cut out for a second there, Charlie. So what does that mean then when it comes to Kamala Harris? Does this guarantee her the nomination if the donor class is behind her, or is there still chance for more infighting over the next month before Chicago?
You know, Brett Baer is going to interview Joe Manchin tonight on Special Report, and Brett's one of the best in the business. I suggest watch that. He says he wants to throw his hat in the ring. I just think that he's a moderate. The modern Democratic Party, Pete, is just so far left, and it was interesting that Obama didn't endorse her, but maybe they're. I've always heard that the whole sort of rationale for this was to give it to her, and make it like there was a contest, that she didn't just get it. She wasn't just anointed. That they're going to release the delegates. They could do whatever they want theoretically. The party gets behind her. Joe Biden's already endorsed her. Obama's staying silent as a way to sort of put lipstick on this, and then they move on. You know what I'm saying? That she's got it. I don't know how you deny it to her. She is the vice president. You know what I'm saying? She has tremendous negatives, including the fact that she might not be. I mean, you could make a great case she's not qualified for the job, right? I mean, just everything. Right? I mean, one of the fascinating things about her being picked as vice president, if you remember, Biden said he boxed himself in, saying, "I'm just going to pick a woman." And then after George Floyd, it was clear he wanted to pick a black woman. If you looked at her during the campaign, she ran against him briefly. She had a brief moment when she basically raised a race issue with him. You remember on busing? She didn't call him a, but she said everything else. And, but it was all downhill from there. She barely registered in polls. People didn't, she wasn't very likable on the Democratic ticket. And then she finds herself as vice president. It was such an odd turnaround, it's like if you were going to pick the person that finished last in the primary to be your running mate, to be possibly president when you're 81. And even back then, people were talking that he didn't have enough stamina for the job. Yeah, remember, they kept him in his basement. I mean, this is kind of a scary situation. And by the way, she can win.
Yeah,
she can win.
Yeah,
the way this country is, the way she's running against Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is very, very divisive. He didn't do himself any favors last night. He came out with some statement that, this guy doubles down on his persona that at least 50% of the people in this country don't like. I think she could win, and that's where the markets could get funky.
Gotcha. What are your donor class sources telling you, Charlie Gasparino, in the next minute about VP selections? Who's the name or a couple of names to watch?
I threw one name in the story, but Josh Shapiro is the name. I don't know if he wants it. I mean, who knows? Maybe he wants to be president, in 4 years. Mark Kelly, the Arizona senator, and mostly, middle of the road types. She'll probably go for a guy, I think that's probably a little bit of a, affirmative action for men here. White men, probably just to bounce out the ticket. That's what they do over there constantly.
Yep.
So that's where I think it's going to go. I mean, those are the names. I mean, that are around, and I put one of them in there. Josh Shapiro's the name I hear a lot. I think he's an attractive candidate because if you remember after the shooting of the assassination attempt on Donald Trump and the Corey Comparatore who tragically died in that, he gave a very sort of thoughtful response to it all. It happened in Pennsylvania. He's the Pennsylvania governor. Thoughtful response, presidential response, I thought. So I think he's got a shot.
Well, Charlie, we always appreciate the insight. Outstanding article. We'll be watching the markets here open up shortly, and we'll talk to you soon.
You got it. Thanks. Anytime, Pete.
You bet. Charlie Gasparino, Fox Business Network on KCMO Talk Radio.